Imagine someone builds a house in the middle of a storm. Every wall was reinforced, every door bolted twice, every window narrowed until barely any light got in. It isn't beautiful. It was never meant to be. It was meant to keep them alive. Now imagine the storm ends, the danger passes, the sky clears, and yet they never rebuild. They just keep living inside the version of the house that was built for the storm, mistaking it for their real home. Most people are doing exactly this with their personality, and they don't know it. If exploring the hidden architecture behind who we become interests you, consider subscribing. Now, back to the house. Think about the quiet kid, the one who learned early that being noticed wasn't safe. So they got very, very good at being unnoticeable. Good at taking up less space in a room. Good at agreeing before anyone had to ask them to. Think about the people pleaser, the one who figured out that other people's moods were a warning system, and if they could just read the room fast enough, manage everyone's feelings quickly enough, nothing bad would happen to them. That kind of vigilance doesn't turn off just because the room is calm now. Think about the perfectionist, who somewhere along the way decided that mistakes were the only tool other people had for finding a reason to leave. So if every single thing was done well enough, there would be no opening, no excuse, nothing to point to. Think about the high achiever who learned that being impressive was the fastest way to be worth keeping around. That admiration could be traded for safety the way other people trade affection for safety. And think about the kid who stopped asking for help, not because they didn't need it, but because they learned once clearly what it felt like to ask and be met with nothing. After that, silence just seemed safer than disappointment. If any of those landed somewhere specific in you, that's not a coincidence. That's recognition. And recognition is the whole point of this video. Not a diagnosis, not a label from the outside. Just a mirror held up to something you've probably felt your whole life without ever having language for. And maybe none of those 5 examples were exactly you. Maybe your version looked different. The class clown who made everyone laugh so nobody would look too closely at what was actually going on at home? Or the responsible one, the one who became the reliable adult in the room years before anyone should have had to. The specific shape doesn't matter as much as the pattern underneath it. Something happened, a strategy formed in response, and the strategy worked well enough, often enough, that it became automatic, something you do now without ever deciding to do it. Here's what's actually happening underneath all of that. None of those are just personality traits. They're strategies. Each one was built by a version of you that was trying to solve a real problem, using whatever tools a child actually has available, which, if you think about it honestly, were never very many. Psychologists have their own ways of talking about this version of you. Some call it a persona, some call it an adapted self or a protective self. In this video, we're just going to call it the survival self, not an official diagnosis. Just a name for something you've probably carried your entire life without ever being able to point to it directly. The survival self isn't a mask you consciously chose one morning. It's closer to a room you built without realizing you were building it. Walls that went up one decision at a time. Each one responding to something that actually happened to you in a moment that felt bigger than it probably looked from the outside. Now here's where most people get this wrong, and where I want you to slow down for a second, because this is the part that actually changes things. The instinct, once you notice your own survival self, is to treat it as evidence that something is broken in you, that the people-pleasing, or the perfectionism, or the silence is proof of damage, proof that you came out of childhood a little cracked, a little less whole than you were supposed to be. But look at it again, more carefully this time. A child who learns that silence keeps him safe has just solved a real problem with the only tools a child has. A child who becomes impressive in order to stay wanted has just solved a real problem. A child who stops asking for help because asking laid nowhere has just solved a real problem too, maybe the saddest kind, but a solution nonetheless, and a fairly ingenious one, given what they had to work with. None of that is defective. It's intelligent. It's a young, under-resourced mind reading its environment correctly and responding with the smartest available move at the time. You didn't build the wrong house. You built the right house for a storm that has since ended. Think about what that actually required. A child doesn't have money or independence or the option to simply leave a bad situation. A child has almost nothing to work with except attention, adaptability, and an enormous underappreciated capacity to figure out exactly what an environment needs in order to feel survivable. That's not a small skill. That's a kind of intelligence most adults would struggle to demonstrate under real pressure, and a child was doing it instinctively, often before they even had the words to describe what they were doing or why. Say that back to yourself for a second, because it changes everything that comes next. This isn't a story about what's wrong with you. It's a story about how resourceful you were a long time ago when you had almost no resources at all. No leverage, no independence, no way out except the strategy you built. This is where psychology actually catches up to what you've just recognized in yourself, not to explain it to you for the first time, but to confirm that you're not imagining it and that you're far from alone in it. Carl Jung used the word persona to describe the mask a person wears to navigate the outside world. Not a lie, exactly, but a necessary interface between an inner self and an environment that doesn't always make room for the whole of who someone is. Jung's point wasn't that the mask is fake. It's that most people eventually forget it's a mask at all. Over time, they stop experiencing it as something they're wearing and start experiencing it as simply who they are. And somewhere in that forgetting, they lose track of what's underneath it. Daniel Winnicott, a psychoanalyst working decades after Jung, described something similar from a different angle, what he called the false self and the true self. Winnicott noticed that when a child's early environment doesn't reliably respond to their real needs, the child learns quietly and without ever deciding to construct a self that will be accepted instead. A self built for compliance, a self built for safety, a self built to be kept rather than a self built to simply exist. The true self doesn't disappear in this process. It just goes quiet, waiting for conditions that feel safe enough to exist without a strategy wrapped around it. Neither Jung nor Winnicott were describing something rare or something reserved for the damaged and the unlucky. They were describing something close to universal. The ordinary architecture of a mind adapting to the only environment it happened to be given. So here's the model, stated plainly, the way I'd want someone to say it to me. Much of your personality is not who you are. It is the collection of strategies your mind developed to help you survive, not a mask hiding some pure identity underneath. A structure your mind built, brick by brick, decision by decision, in response to a world that demanded something specific from you in exchange for feeling safe in it. And here's why that distinction matters more than it might seem to on the surface. If your personality is a strategy, it can be examined, questioned, updated. If it's a fixed identity, it can only be defended, protected, kept exactly as it is. Those are two completely different relationships to your own life. One where you're the architect, and one where you're just the tenant defending walls you never chose and can't remember agreeing to. Go back to the house one more time. The storm is over. Nobody sent a message to the walls. Nobody told the windows that danger had passed. So the house just keeps doing what it was built to do, reinforcing, narrowing, bolting, not because it's malfunctioning, but because it's still, in every literal sense, doing its job exactly as designed. The problem was never the house itself. The problem is that no one ever went back to tell it the weather changed outside. That's most people's relationship with their own personality. Steel bracing for a storm that ended years, sometimes decades ago. Still running a strategy that once made perfect sense inside a life that no longer requires it and may never have required it as urgently as it once felt. Most people believe their personality reveals who they are. Often, it reveals what they had to survive. Sit with that for a second, because it isn't a small idea, and it isn't meant to be comforting in a shallow way. It means the parts of you that feel most stubborn, most automatic, most simply who you are. The people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the self-sufficiency that never quite lets anyone all the way in. None of those are your identity. They're your history, still running quietly in the present tense, still answering a question nobody's asking anymore. And that reframes the discomfort you might be feeling right now watching this. If you've ever felt exhausted by your own personality, tired of performing the same reflex over and over again, in situations that don't actually call for it, with people who were never a threat to begin with, that exhaustion isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a signal. It's the part of you that already knows this storm is over, even while the walls keep bracing anyway, out of habit, out of memory, out of loyalty to a version of the world that no longer exists. That's not failure, that's information. And information can be acted on in a way that fear alone never could be. Here's the question this really leaves you with. because this episode was never meant to hand you a finished answer, only a clearer question to carry forward. If your personality was built to survive something that isn't happening anymore, why does your mind keep protecting it so fiercely, long after the danger has disappeared? Why does it feel almost impossible to simply put the walls down, even once you can see them clearly? That's not a small mystery. That's the next room in the house, and it's exactly where we're going next. If any of this landed somewhere real, I'd actually like to know. Think of one habit you have today that probably kept you safe as a kid. What was it protecting you from? Tell me in the comments.